need to amalgamate academia with research so that our people not only get knowledge, at the same time they will get a hands-on skill. So we resort to technology, but we are still lacking on effective delivery system. For example, we need technology everywhere. And our people are not even into 5% of the thing. Imagine if a person is going to apply for a study abroad program, and if he or she is going to send a digital record of his transcript, there is a blockchain mediated authentication which many people do not follow. That is why a couple of people do not get any admissions in the United States and in the Europe. So we adapt to technology very fast. So the normal which was there in the developed countries, like the Zoom, etc., is now become the new normal here in India. And there are inherent problems with that, but at the same time, we should also know that with these kind of new normals, the government also wants an outcome-based education. So the education, and what is the outcome of that education? What does that education bring about physically in increasing the technology and development? This is called OBE. Now it is popularly called as open book education. But at the same time, we need to know that while knowledge is profuse, the skill is still lacking. Hence, when people are focusing on education, they mainly focus on the beginning and the end. Where is the beginning here? Beginning starts with the counseling. For example, we have Mr. Nitish from our university who takes care of admission and marketing. So he is taking care of the whole thing in the initial part, and finally the placement part. So we give more importance only to both the ends, but at the same time we forget the middle important chunk, which is nothing but the delivery system, the learning pedagogies, the evaluation part, or what is the student that is being exposed to, which is not at all being focused in our Indian system of education to say. So this is more important for a person to excel in an international arena. So what is the need of the hour is that we have less of a governance here in India with regard to the education and education policy, but we have more stringency in the accreditation. You might have heard about NAC, you might have heard about NBA, National Board of Accreditations, ABET is an accreditation process. So each process is very stringent, and people who sit in these processes are nothing but the IIT people. And imagine when an IIT person is going to come to a private university, he thinks that he has to have the same kind of physical infrastructure that he sees in an IIT. But whereas the finance part is a very big crunch, where that is a public institute versus this is a private institute. So the main disgrace that we have in India is this three-tier system of universities, where the initial things is the central university. We have around 45 to 52 universities which are called central universities. They are given the federal government, the central government funding, profuse funding. And to be very pathetic to say that we have 30% of the faculties there in central universities, they are not being filled so far. Next one is the public universities. Public universities by the state-funded universities, they have enough of funding. And then comes the deemed to be and the universities which are there. So you need to know that the major chunk comes to the private universities first. And private universities in the United States are also there, but at the same time the main motto is philanthropic mode. But whereas in India, there are many big universities which do have a philanthropic mode, but at the same time, the mushrooming universities, they don't have a philanthropic mode. And ultimately, they look forward to seeking many things, and that is why the governance becomes a very, very big problem. So with this multi-layer approach, we have pockets of teaching institutions. For example, in Bihar, if you just say there are only 7 institutions that cater to 1 million of a population of students. But whereas if you take Telangana, it is 52 institutions. So we don't have an evenized structure, and this is where the counseling comes into play to bring elite people to be brought into an evenized platform. So having this, the other important resource is about the teaching pedagogies, where we give a very importance to knowledge creation as well as capacity building. And this comes not only with the teaching part, but it is also coming with hands-on training with regard to the capacity building. At the end of the day, we make our students finally excel. And there are two important words which I would want to say. Number one is marketing. Another one is selling. So if you talk about marketing, we can market anything by the way we sell or by the way we just conversion. Even it could be a substandard product. But whereas if you want to make people saleable, that has to have a standard. Then only people can sell a standard product. So marketing is one that you can market any product with any standard, but saleable products are products with such a lot of standard. That is why when it comes to policy making, there are a lot of institutions in India like MHRD and Association of Indian Universities are there, and advisory boards of education for K-12, they are there. They are taking care of all the policy decisions. And I should say that now the CSR funding is a very important funding where the private universities are supposed to give 2% of their produce that they get for a common pool of fund to the government of India, where they will give a disbursement to all the universities for infrastructure development. But whereas, to my knowledge, I should say that we do not have that kind of a 2% funding going out from every private institution that probably you might be knowing, because a couple of people are there from the private universities as well. So with this marketing and saleability, with this new education policy, NEP 2020 coming into existence, now people are now settling into a common initiative language, because now we don't have any other choice. We see that there are a lot of dropouts in the first year, second year and third year, and then we give diploma when they go out of the first year. We give a transient degree in the second year, and if we give a full degree in the third year. So I am not here to debate on the NEP to talk about the pros and cons, but I should say that one important thing that we have to have is development of a portfolio course which will tailor make our students to be very competitive with regard to a unique placement opportunity. For example, a person who is going to hire when they come for a placement after they complete, they not only look for the knowledge and the technical skills, but they also look for soft skills, like good say of an English language or a good interpersonal skills, which doesn't come from any higher education, I should say. There are a lot of institutions which exclusively have language labs and all the other things, but at the same time they are not of good depth as we do that in the 12th standard or in the 10th to 12th standard. So this is one of the important places where we nurture and churn these students to take up a very great level, and this is going to be there only below the K-12 situations. At the same time, the student intellect investment counseling is more important, where that has to have, and it has to take place in the K-12 as well as in the first year entry person. So this is where the main importance of people who are enrolling into different universities will certainly play. We need to have certainly an audit of all the courses to see that are we evenizing the placements everywhere. For example, you know that earlier there were a lot of engineering colleges that came into existence. Now everybody are engineers. So earlier it's only BA or BCom. Now you see BE everywhere. And now the next trend is MBBS and BDS, where you will soon see everybody will be an MBS. And you will be scared to go even for a small vaccination to these people. So why I am coming to say this part is, this is the current trend that goes on, but at the same time we forget about unique things such as finance or language, etc. We have a very big problem because we cater to more than some 6 to 7 languages. We are not even finding teachers to teach these kind of languages, even though if you want to get a higher amount of salary in Amity University, just I'm talking about. So what is the need of the hour is we need to have a thorough analysis and a self-audit of the institution that currently you are responsible. You might say that, no way we are anywhere closer to that, because we have our management that plays a very vital role. But at the same time, we need to have a dent in bringing this more important. And we need to focus on the academic model, which will give a longer run to a good business model. For example, the universities which have excelled in India, they have only focused on academic model. For example, like Amity or Shivnada University, OPG. If you would say these people who had ventured, the chancellors, the chairmen who had started this institutions, they had a very great vision, and they didn't have a vision of minting money from the institutions, which we need to take that into consideration. And at the same time, we need to motivate our people to make a great brand value, which is more important, which will make people like you very easier in the placement and also in the intake of the students. That has to be taken care of. And at the end, I should say that anything is not for sale in academia, which is more important, that we need to nurture to the students and the people who are coming inside, even for the enrollment to any other universities. Because enrolling is only the initial part that we do. Okay, then rest of the things are being taken care by their own respective skills and by their own knowledge. So, in order to prevent this, the bias, there are a lot of Indian initiatives in the higher education that have been put forth that we all know. For example, NAR Prime. And now the government has come with a 3-tier autonomy system, where the universities and the institutions are being moved on to 3 tiers, where every tier will come with a little bit of freedom by which you could modify your syllabus, get more intake, you can even get more fees for the subjects that you are a flagship institution, etc. Or for example, there are a lot of collaborative initiatives like GIAN, etc., where we can collaborate with Indian international universities to take that into consideration. So having said that, ultimately what we are lacking is that we are just only catering to the need of the 19.4% of the GER. But what happens to the rest of the people who are there in the villages and in the other places, who are very well qualified, who don't have